Ace is absolutely going to be a problem for me. Let me explain. By the way, here's a deck list if you want to see that, but I will be going more into depth on all of that in just a bit. But hold on. Let's just look at how many event cards there are over here. And honestly, that's by design because of our leader, Ace. Mono red leader, 5k power, 5 life. But when this leader is attacked or being attacked, you may trash any number of event or stage cards from your hand. And then for each card you trashed, plus 1k power for this leader during this battle. So even if your hand is just littered with event cards, there's still some extra utility. And if you saw my Zoro deck profile last time, you would know that in OP03, there are some nice events. But this is where the balance of Ace really needs to play out, right? How many events is too many events? So as we go through the core, the flex, the essentials, let me know in the comments below, what do you think the character to events ratio should be? But anyway, let's get into it. So if you have seen my Zoro video, the core cards are going to look pretty similar. So returning from OP02, we do have Curly the Dan, and this is honestly just a search for your searchers. We do have the new Ezo card from OP03, who searches for your Whitebeard cards, and then we got Buggy, who searches for your event cards. And that is the main core of the deck, but I will mention I'm also throwing in OP03 Marco into here. If you don't know, 5 cost to play, 6,000 power, counter plus 1k on your turn on play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less, and then on KO, you may trash one event card from your hand, play this card from the trash as rested. So he's an incredibly sticky character who also pops 3Ks when played, and then also is a really good attacker, who is a natural attacker for everyone, including Whitebeard opponents. And honestly, we're seeing that OP03 Marco is quite a staple for most red decks, so be on the lookout for him. Moving on to our essentials, we do have the other Marco, Blocker Marco from OP02. If you don't know, on KO, you may trash one card from hand with Whitebeard Pirates in its type. If you have 2 or less life, play this character from your trash as rested. So, keyword blocker as well. 4 cost to play, 5,000 power, counter plus 1k. I know I did that kind of opposite my usual cadence, but just like OP03 Marco, very hard to keep off the board. Next up, we do have our 2k counter in Jozu, 4 cost to play, 4,000 power, counter plus 2k, but Dawn times 1 if you have 2 or less life and your leader type includes Whitebeard Pirates. Luckily, Aces does. This character gains rush. So really cool for a potentially sneaky hit, but really, we just want the 2k counter here. And in rounding out our essentials, we do have 2 different event cards here. So the first one is going to be Fire Fist, 3 cost to play. Main ability, you can discard 1 event card from your hand, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less, and up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. And then trigger ability, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. But really, the reason why I like Fire Fist in here, and I know there's some debates as to like what the best removal event cards for Ace is, I still think Fire Fist, mostly because I like that wider like potential for board removal versus using, just relying on something like Jet Pistol. Which, funny enough, I do have Jet Pistol in here. I'll talk about that in a bit. But 3 costs to potentially KO 2 different characters. That's pretty nice, especially since I'm sort of predicting that we're going to be seeing a little bit more Zoro because of the Whitebeard boat ban. And we all know that Zoro really loves to play those cheap characters. Same thing with Law, especially in the sort of North America English release. Law players have been eating really good, especially after fellow content creator Cross AI won a regionals with it. So first of all, congratulations. I don't think I've said that on a video yet. Congratulations on the win. That's super awesome. But also, Law has to stop. Fire Fist stops that. And I guess speaking of Cross, we do go into our next event card, Crossfire. 2 costs to play. It is a main or a counter, can be either. And if your leader has Whitebeard Pirates in its type, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 4,000 power during this turn, and then trigger activate this card's main effect. Now this is really good, not so much as a counter, but as a way to handle the really powerful big mobs, because with this and some other effects you can get it down into removal range, which is pretty nice, to be honest. Or if you're not playing against a yellow deck, you can really use this for any situation. probably in those cases much more useful as a counter than is a main event card. Alright, last but not least, let's go into our flex cards, and there's quite a few of them, so really you can mix and match to really make this fit your playstyle. But first couple actually I want to talk about are Otama and Makino. These are both 2k counters, 1 cost to play, so can be searched by Curly to Dan. And if you've been playing the game for a bit, you kind of know what they do, but just as a quick recap, Otama, 1 cost to play, 0 attack, counter plus 2k, but on play, give up to one of your opponent's characters, minus 2000 power during this turn. Really good for getting our opponent's characters into removal range. And then I do have Makino in here, 1 cost to play, 0 power, counter plus 2k, but activate main, you can rest this character and up to one of your red cards with a cost of 1 gains plus 3000 power during this turn. Makino is actually a newer addition to this deck, and really is because, you know, I was playing a lot of Izos, Buggies, and Curly to Dan. Well, Curly to Dan, not as applicable here. But I had a lot of Izos and Buggies on the field who, you know, I didn't really want to commit Dawn to attach onto them to make them attack. So they kind of were just dead on my field. And then I kept getting, like, you know, blown out of the water by opponents. So I put in Makino just to make those characters a little bit more viable as natural attackers. And if I wanted to boost them up a little bit more, can attach Dawn. But really, I'm relying on Makino to make Buggy useful. And honestly, Buggy is probably the more useful attacker between the two 1k or 1 cost searchers, just because he can't be KO'd by anyone who has slash abilities. So against you know, opposing Zoros, their leader can't KO Buggy, which is nice. Next up on the flex cards, we do have Marshall D. Teach. Now, if you remember from the Zoro video, I ultimately did end up calling Teach a essential card in Zoro. I actually think he's less essential in Ace. Mostly because, you know, we can include the event card Whitebeard Pirates, which searches for more things than we need. So Ace has less of a drawing issue, right? Really, this is just good for some extra utility. Get that extra draw, which is really nice in red in general, and is a pretty good attacker. But if you want to swap him out with something else, I could totally understand that. But 4 cost to play, 6000 power, potential to get draw, and to, you know, utilize some of those weaker characters by temporarily powering them up and then using them to be sacrificed to Blackbeard. Too many beards in one piece. Then awesome. And then if you don't put them out onto the field, could be fodder for you know, blocker Marco, so that you can bring Marco back onto the field. Next up, we do have character Whitebeard, 9 cost to play, 10,000 power on play, up to one of your leaders gains plus 2,000 power until the start of your next turn. Then you can add cards from your life area to your hand by your effects during this turn. That part doesn't matter as much. When attacking, Dawn times 2, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3000 power or less. Flex card mostly because I was debating between this and 7 cost Ace from OP02 for that sort of rush aggression. But I do like the sustainability of getting that plus 2k until the start of your next turn with Whitebeard, but potentially maybe a touch too slow. But let me know, what do you think should be the high-end card for this deck? Because I am honestly genuinely curious to hear your thoughts on it. And then rounding out the deck profile, we do have a plethora of event cards here, starting with Whitebeard Pirates. This actually searches for a Whitebeard character, which is pretty nice. So really the thing that you kind of like to see is play the Buggy, find Whitebeard Pirates, play Whitebeard Pirates, find any number of the Whitebeard Pirates that you want. Next up, and I talked about it earlier, we do have some copies of Jet Pistol in here, 3 to be exact. So this is a 4 cost to play. Main effect is KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a power of 6000 or less. And then trigger, activate this card's main effect. And the reason why people have been doing more Jet Pistol is because we've seen a lot more Marshall D. Teach being used, at least in the Asia meta. And when it was just strictly like Fire Fist being used as your removal, people caught wind. And then essentially they would just put, you know, taller characters out. And this whole strategy of build tall has actually proven to be pretty effective against what was previously some of the more meta decks. So Jet Pistol is potentially an answer to some of those taller cards. And then last but not least, I have 2 copies of Flame Emperor. This is a new event card, 7 costs to play, but main ability, if your leader is Porcus the Ace, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 8000 power or less, and your leader gains double attack and plus 3000 power during this turn. Also, trigger effect, KO to one of your opponent's characters with 6000 power or less. So Flame Emperor is like a huge kind of all-in attack for your leader, which is kind of nice. I know a lot of people have been debating whether or not Flame Emperor is worth it in the meta, just because 7 cost is a little bit slow. There are potentially other cards you would want to play in like replacement of that, which is kind of why I have it as flex. But I did try and replace Flame Emperor, just like not including it, putting in more event cards with removal, putting in more characters, and honestly, for me personally, none of them felt as good as having Flame Emperor, just because it's, you know, pretty good removal, 8,000 power or less. There's a lot of things out there. If you combine that with Otama, which is a total of 8, Dawn total, you can KO something with 10,000 power naturally. And then double attack and plus 3,000 power means that even if your opponent has a slightly taller blocker, they're going to not only have to block, but commit resources in order to prevent that attack. Or if they don't have a blocker, they're going to have to commit a lot of resources to counter that. So I kind of like the pressure of Flame Emperor here. And then to fully go over the deck ratios, we do have 1 leader, 4 Otamas, I got 3 Maginos, sort of to make room for some Whitebeard Searchers afterwards. Got 4 Izos, 4 Buggies, 3 Curly Dedans. Then I got 4 Jozu, 4 Marco, the blocker, 3 Marshall D Teach, 4 OP03 Marcos, 3 Whitebeard characters, and then going into our events, I have 3 Whitebeard Pirates, the Searcher, 3 Crossfire, 4 Fire Fists, 3 Jet Pistol, and then 2 Flame Emperor. So the question I posed at the beginning of this video, what is too many, too little event cards? Let me know. Is this too many? Is this not enough? Let me know in the comments. But I think once people figure out the right ratio for Ace, Ace is going to be a problem. Now surprisingly, you know who else is going to be a problem? Black and Yellow Big Mom. If you don't know about that deck, check out my last video. But thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And captains, remember, build what you like, play what you love, and I'll catch you in the next video.